Hello, welcome back to another video. My name is Gemma and we're going to talk about all of the books I read in October. So October was a weird month for me. I read hardly anything. I read 7 books, so this is going to be a short and sweet wrap up. I was just super busy and I don't know what happened to October. It was here and then it was gone. It was just gone. I think part of the problem was I had picked up several quite chunky books that I then didn't manage to finish in the month, or I had chunky books that like ran over from the last month that took a big chunk of time. So yeah, it was what it was. I read 7. Only one of them I would say was a dud out of the 7. So we've got 6 great books to talk to you about and one that I would probably advise against. But before we get into that, just to update you on my overall reading goal, which is not going very well, of reading more books by non-UK, non-US authors. It went really badly in October. I read 78% of books by American authors. I read 11% of books by British authors, which leaves 11% by non-British, non-American. That's nowhere near my 50%. It's not good. And then the overall for the year is 36% for non-British, non-US. So I have a feeling I'm not going to achieve that goal unless I were to not read any British or American authors between now and the end of the year, and that is just not going to happen because I have buddy reads that are by American and British authors planned. So yeah, maybe next year. Let's see. But onto the books, and we'll start with the book in 7th position, the book that I liked the least. I gave it 2.5 stars, and I really wish that I had DNF'd the 50% mark. Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts. Okay, where do I even start with this? So this is a book about a man who escapes from prison in Australia. He escapes to Bombay, and it's about his life there. Sort of how he gets embroiled in the criminal underworld, I suppose, of Bombay. Parts of this were really good, and I think the first third was pretty strong. There was a character in here, the main character's sort of best friend, Prabhakar, who was absolutely brilliant. Loved him as a character. But, okay, where do I start with my issues? Okay, the first issue is the length of this. So this is like 900 odd pages, but it's a super small typeface. I don't know if you can see that. So I actually audioed all of this, and it was 45 hours of audio. Some of the chapters were like well over an hour long. That is too long for a chapter. Just no, that's not okay. And there were whole chapters in here of the main guy, Lynn, having very deep philosophical discussions with the like the king of the criminal ring, and it felt very navel gazy, you know, like, oh, look how much I know about the world and philosophy. And it's like, mate, I don't care for an hour several times. Just no. I also felt that it kind of glamorized criminal behaviour. I don't know. I feel like I'm nitpicking a bit with that comment because I was just so bored of it by the end. I was just like, mate, you're not some sort of hero, you are a criminal. So just like give it up, you know? So yeah, I think this was probably about 600 pages too long. I think it was very navel gazy, and I was pretty bored by the end of it. So I gave this 2.5 stars. I would not recommend, which I know is probably an unpopular opinion because this is a very popular book, but I did not think it was worth the page count. Not even a little bit. No. So we go from 2.5 stars straight up to 4 stars. So everything else that I talk about now, I really loved, and it was really difficult to rank them. So in 6th position, we have Saga Volume 2. I'm really enjoying this graphic novel series. It's about it's fantasy sci-fi about two people, a girl and a man, who are from different species and different sides of a war. They get together, have a baby. That is not okay by either of their sides, and so they're sort of being hunted through space. And this is just very much a continuation from the first one. They're very, very small, but they do pack a punch. I really, really enjoyed the artwork. There are parts in here that really made me laugh. I'm just going to try and show you a picture that possibly isn't going to spoil anything. I don't know if I can. Oh, I'll just show you this picture from the back. It is all in colour, but I'll just show you this one from the back so you can get an idea of the art style. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I've already read the third one. That'll be in my November wrap up. And yeah, I would highly recommend if you're looking for a really fun, fast-paced graphic novel series. This is top-notch stuff. Then in fifth position, we have another sci-fi. We have Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey. This is the second in the Expanse series, and I buddy read this with Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, Fraser from Fraser Simon Springboard Thought, and Sarah from Freshly Read Books, and we had a blast with this again. I am really, really enjoying this series. It's really fast-paced, really plotty, great characters. There was the introduction of a couple of new POVs within this book that I absolutely loved. For those that have read it, Bobby and Avasarala, top-notch characters. And yeah, I really loved it. This is a sort of space epic. It's set in space. There is a proto-molecule on the loose and causing all sorts of problems with different political factions within the universe. I can't really tell you too much more than that without spoiling, but I would really recommend, if you're looking for plotty, if you're just looking to get lost in a great story, then yeah, it was fab. Loved it. 4 stars. Next up, we have a book that was on no TBR ever, but I picked it up anyway, and that's The Haunting of Aveline Jones by Phil Hicks. So I took my eldest son Sam to Alton Towers for the day. We went up the day before and we came back on the Saturday, and I was like, oh well, why don't we listen to an audiobook on the way, because it's a good sort of 3 hour drive, 2.5 3 hour drive for us. And so we picked that one and we listened to it on the way, and it was perfect. It was spooky. It's about a young girl, Aveline Jones, who's staying with her aunt in Cornwall, and spooky stuff starts happening, and there's a bookshop involved and a diary, and it's just like middle grade catnip. I really, really enjoyed it. So well written. Sam also really enjoyed it. So if you have any kids around the sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 age, I think it's perfect. And yeah, just a really solid, spooky middle grade book, and I'm looking forward to reading the second in the series at some point. In third position, and this is also a 4.5 star read for me, we have If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. My very first Baldwin, and I've got another 3 of his books, I think, on my shelf. One of those authors where you think, oh, I'll probably like them, I'm going to buy all their stuff before you've even tried it. But now I've tried it and I know that I do like his stuff. This is about a young woman who is pregnant, and at the beginning of the book she's visiting her other half, the father of her baby, who is in prison. And this book takes us through their relationship, how they got together, their sort of romance, and then what happened with his arrest and why he's in prison. And it was just super well done, a really interesting look at this period of time for the Black community in Harlem. And yeah, it was just so well written. I mean, I don't think I need to say that. Baldwin is like a legend, right? And I was delighted to have finally gotten to this, because it was exceptional. I would recommend, if you haven't tried James Baldwin, this is a very good place to start. And if you have read Baldwin but haven't read this one, it is a corker. So yes, recommend. Then in second position, we have The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang, and I buddy read this with Sandy again from Ms. Reads a Lot, Dia from Novel Idea, and Jack at Spread Book Joy, and this was so good. We've been trying to read fantasy together all year and we haven't had the best of experiences, but this one was a good one. It's a Eastern inspired fantasy with sort of the traditional swords and that sort of side of things, but it does also have like some modern elements in it as well. It was a really interesting mix. But one of the things I loved about this was you had two perspectives, the mother and the son. And the mother is like a woman in her 40s, late 40s, mid 40s. And how often do you get a perspective, particularly in fantasy, of a woman of that age? You just don't. And so it was great. There was just like little bits in there, like where her back was aching, or you know, shit, and it was just nice to it not always to be like a young fit whippersnapper that we're hearing from. But I thought this was so well done. The world building in this book was second to none. Looking at some of the background, M.L. Wang had actually written a lot of other books in this series that she never published, so she had really built this world in her mind to this point where she has this book. One problem for me, some people have said this book is like 100 pages too long. I would say it is about 300 pages too short. I feel like there's more of the story to tell, and I want that story and I want it now, but it isn't going to be coming anytime soon, if ever, which is really sad, because these characters really got under my skin. This world got under my skin. The politics was so well done. I think there was only one moment right near the beginning where I felt that M.L. Wang had info dumped, but the rest of it all flowed really, really nicely. And yeah, she does have another book which has come out quite recently that I would quite like to read. I don't think it's fantasy, I think it might be dark academia. And yeah, just what an incredibly talented writer, and this was self-published. So yeah, would recommend if you're looking for a top-notch fantasy novel. This one is a goodie. And then in my number one spot, my only 5-star of the month, though, you know, 4.5 stars is pretty good too. I'm talking about the 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. This was the FOMO book club pick for September and October. We did do a full spoilered discussion on this on Jack's channel. I'll link that below. So if you've read it and you want to see what our thoughts were, you can check it out there. But I thought it was so good. This is a gothic tale of twins. So we have a young woman who is asked to go and write the biography for a very famous writer, a writer who has never disclosed her history to anyone before. And she turns up and this writer just tells her her story. It's a little more complicated than that, but read the book and you'll find out. And so we go back through this author's life from her grandparents to her parents to her. So we have this multi-generational saga, tick tick, throughout this book, because we're looking at an author and a biographer. There is a lot of discussion around reading, the importance of words, the importance of books, and as a biblioholic, is that even a word? That just spoke to me on every level. There's some beautiful quotes in here. It's fast paced. The switch between sort of the current timeline and the story timeline is pretty much seamless. You never feel like you're spending too much time in one and not the other. It just, everything about this book just worked. If you enjoy Victorian literature, I think you will love this. There are a lot of odes to the Brontes, particularly Jane Eyre. One thing I would say is if you haven't read Jane Eyre but you want to, maybe read that first, because there is like a full spoiled description of Jane Eyre in this book. But I absolutely adored it, and yeah, I can't really gush about it enough. It was just perfect for the autumn dark evenings as well. So yes, I loved it. I would love to know what your favourite books of October were. What were the creme of the crop? Creme of the crop? Cream of the crop? Creme de la creme? Mixing things up here. And as we're talking about cream, if you've made it to this far in the video, give me a cow emoji. And if you're interested in what I am going to be reading in November, I'll leave my TBR here and I will catch you very soon with another one. Bye guys.